Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Modern Customer Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Morgan. Today, my guest is Keith Farley, Senior Vice President of Individual Voluntary Benefits and Head of Customer Care Centers for Aflac. Aflac is a beloved and known brand with 12,000 employees, including areas in Japan, the US, and Northern Ireland. Keith has been with Aflac since 2008. Previously, he led Aflac Northern Ireland, where he built a large technology hub. Keith oversees growth and customer experience for more than 2,000 employees. And earlier in his career, he held sales and marketing roles with Stanley Black & Decker's DeWalt brand. He is a graduate of Auburn University and Queen's University Belfast. Today, we are talking about his approach to employee experience, where he is using AI in customer service, and how to thrive in an industry that is always changing. Please enjoy Keith Farley. Keith, welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast. It's so nice to see you this morning, and you have such a great jacket on. I love when my guests dress up for me.
Thank you, Blake. I appreciate it. Look forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. So I think it's such an interesting time to be in insurance, to be in tech, to be in customer experience. I love having a front seat to this show of so much transformation, so much change. You have been in the heart of customer experience for a long time. For our guests that don't know you and haven't met you before, give us the elevator pitch of who you are.
Yeah, great to do it. I am our Senior Vice President of Individual at Aflac, which is one of our business units here in the US and the largest business unit for Aflac in the US with about 75% of our domestic business. I've been here 16 years. Prior to this, I was with Stanley Black & Decker working on the DeWalt brand for 7 years in customer experience, and then started my career at Coca-Cola for a couple of years while in school.
Love that. I was looking at your bio and your background, and I think it's so interesting to work in different sectors, like to work with companies like tools, like Home Depot, and then also switch over to insurance. Are you seeing that there's a lot of commonality when you approach customer experience, no matter the industry?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, one thing is we all have the same customers. So the same person that buys insurance from Aflac, flies on Delta, ships with UPS. So the customer experience you have in one industry now sets a bar and expectation for all industries. And so for me personally, coming from consumer packaged goods and then into financial services, I think it gives me a different perspective on how I view the customer, knowing that it's not just insurers that we compete with, it's every customer experience that we're competing with.
So this is a tough year for insurance, but it also feels like when everything is difficult, it's also a chance to shine, to be there for the customer. Have things changed for you in the industry in the last like 18 months as just everything just feels a little uncertain?
Yeah, I mean, we are in the business of uncertainty and trying to give people a little bit more peace of mind in an uncertain world. And obviously, where we play specifically as Aflac is, when you have an illness or an accident, and so it's a type of health insurance. But really, all insurance is to try to lessen the uncertainty or lessen the chance of something bad happening if there is uncertainty. And so, in our case, it's financial protection for an accident or illness. But I think it's true for all insurance that this is one of the times where we're probably more relevant than others.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you have to have insurance. I mean, it's just something that, I mean, no customer is, let's be honest, they're not excited to go out and buy insurance, but it gives you peace of mind so you can sleep at night, whether it's for pet insurance, health, or any kind of insurance. Let's talk about how you approach building teams because you have built so many different kinds of teams. You manage a lot of people. What do you think the tenets of a good employee experience strategy are and how that ties to the customer experience.
Yeah, I think there's two things that I look for when building a team, and that is, does the person have curiosity and does the person have empathy? Because those are very important for us. Curiosity brings innovation and new thinking and questioning why things are the way they are and why they can't be this other way. And then empathy obviously brings in that human touch, which in our business is very important because a lot of times we're meeting people on a bad day, if not the worst day of their life. They've been diagnosed with a disease, they've lost a loved one, maybe they broke their arm skiing and they're in pain. When they come to us, it's usually a pretty rough day for them. So, from our standpoint, empathy is critical. And I think in the world that we're in, I'm sure we'll get into AI and what everyone's doing there. there's really a spot and a seat at the table for the human experience. And so we really try to keep that at the forefront and make sure that in the world of automation and LLMs and agentic AI, that we don't lose that human touch that, is so unique to a company like ours.
Well, let's go back to the beginning a little bit. As we think about culture, we think about building that culture of empathy that you speak of. How do you build that culture with so much technology moving so quickly, customer needs changing? Like, how do you stay true to that empathetic culture that you're trying to build?
So I think it's really in how you treat your employees is usually how they'll treat the customers. So if it's a place where they're stressed out and they're always, kind of running around like, their hair's on fire, that will come across. It's hard to hide that. If you treat your employees as a place where they are respected and they are important and they're all part of a mission that's doing something greater than themselves, I think it naturally comes out. One of our founders famously said, if you take care of the people, they'll take care of the customers. That was Paul Amos. And we've really just kind of kept that going since our founding in 1955. But I would say it's even more important now because in a world when everything's automated and you don't need any people in some areas of, that we're starting to see with DoorDash and things like that. I say that because my son drives for DoorDash and he doesn't interact with any people. He goes to a restaurant, picks up food, drops it off the door, takes a picture and leave. And I keep telling him, hey, listen, you've got to get in a job where you interact with people because that human experience is critical and is what people are going to long for, in my opinion.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. My kids are a little younger. They're not getting their first jobs yet, but yeah, I mean, the work is changing. Now, employees are interacting as much with technology as they used to with humans. So, and they say if you aren't open to it, if you don't learn the technology, you won't have a job because that's just the future.
That's exactly right. And we tell our employees here, look, we know technology is going to change. We know customer expectations are going to change. We got to change with them. But also, we got to hold on to the things that we think are important from a human standpoint. So if someone wants to use a mobile app to update their address or to file a claim, no problem. We understand that. But when someone wants to talk through a difficult diagnosis they've gotten, you don't want to talk to a chatbot at that point, right? You want to know what your options are and how we can help you, cover all the bills that you're going to have. So in some cases, there's a time for that technology. In other places, there's that time for that really authentic human.
When I think of insurance, it does feel like somewhat of a transactional industry where you might never meet the customers that you're providing the policies for. And it is tough to make those decisions like will this be covered, will it not? And I know you are the P&L owner for what you do in customer experience, profit and loss, like I'm always telling my practitioners, how do you tie good customer experience to ROI? And I know I threw a lot at you right there, but I mean, just as a P&L expert, are there any tips you have for our practitioners that are trying to show the value of treating customers beautifully while growing the company?
Yeah, I mean, I think that customer experiences are going to come into two places from a P&L standpoint. One is on acquisition. If you're easier to do business with, you should get more customers. More people want to interact with you. And that's the obvious one that we all kind of know about. The easiest place to buy is where you're going to buy things online, right? The second part, though, for us, especially as an insurance company, is persistency. So if you're easy to do business with, people will stay with you longer. And in our world, because there's a monthly expense that people are paying for their insurance for that coverage, it's almost like a subscription model with renewals, right? So, I liken it to Disney or a Hulu, right? Or a Netflix. Not only do we want you to pick us, but we want you to stay with us. And so if I provide the right customer experience, not only can I get more customers, the acquisition side, but I can really keep more of those customers. And in our world, because there's a, annual premium that we're taking in or monthly premium that we're taking in, how long you keep someone is almost just as important as how many people you can get.
Absolutely. And is that something is customer experience and ROI a conversation that you and your executive team have?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we do look at those two things of how many new customers do we have, and then how are we keeping and growing that customer base, including cross-selling. Are there other opportunities if someone has an accident plan, but they also could use a cancer plan? If they've had a bad customer experience, you're not going to have a shot at that conversation. Whereas if they had a great customer experience, then they want to understand, okay, what other products might you offer?
So it seems like you're a company that really does lean into empathy, compassion. So does that mean that you make it easy for customers to opt out of a technology experience and get to a human quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, an example of that, Blake, would be In our call center, we have what's called a first-time diagnosis of cancer line. So if you call our call center, 1-800-99-AFLAC, and you're listening to the options, one of the options you'll hear is, if this is your first time with a cancer diagnosis, please press 1 for special assistance. And when you press 1, you get kind of a direct line into a team of people that all they do every day is deal with first-time cancer diagnosis calls, right? So they have a different level of empathy. They know exactly what kind of questions you're going to have because they take hundreds of these calls. Unfortunately, they take hundreds of these calls every day. So they know exactly how to walk you through it. And one of the great things I love is, we're a company based in Columbus, Georgia, here in the south of the US. And so, when I listen to these calls, our customer service rep will say, listen, honey, I take these calls all day, every day of people that fight and beat cancer, and you're going to be one of them. Okay, baby, I got you. We're going to get through this. Now, here's the information I need to help you out. But there's this feeling, and again, AI can't do that, right? It can't give you that feeling of another human saying, I'm going to help you out. So we do have technology. If you want to do an address change, probably not something you want to call us about. We'll gladly take your call and help you with it, but you can do that through the app a lot faster. But when you have a diagnosis like cancer, that's why we want to have a specialized line of experts that's all they do is take those calls all day. And I'll tell you, when we created that line about a year and a half ago, my thought was every 30 days we're going to need to rotate out of that line because it's such a difficult call because people might be terminal. And so I said, well, every 30 days we're going to have to put a new team in that, so that people don't get, really, really upset. Nobody on the team has wanted to leave. They said, this is the most important call that we take. And I go home every day knowing that I've helped people. Please don't take me off that team. So we have yet to do a rotation because the team that's been doing it is so fulfilled with the conversations that they're having.
Wow, that is incredible. I love that story. And I think that what executives sometimes forget is how much meaningful work matters to employees, that no employee wakes up wanting to do a bad job, but how we develop, engage, onboard, train our employees to show up there and be their best selves. Like that is a huge piece of customer experience because employees do want to do a good job.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, like you said, nobody gets up from bed and says, "I want to have a bad day today." They want to do the best that they can, and so how can we provide avenues for them to do that? And really, that's where technology helps us. If we have technology that can handle kind of the rote and mundane tasks in life, that allows us to free up time for people, to be authentic, to be empathetic, to build relationships, and to do the things that AI isn't great at. So that's kind of how we look at technology is, can we get rid of the mundane things that just need to happen as part of a business so we can have more time for these empathetic conversations?
So I can't let you off the podcast without talking about AI strategy. When you began to look at these technologies, because they're all still pretty new, Keith. So when you began to look at these technologies and evaluated how they could help you solve problems within the company, how did you even get started looking at AI and the use cases?
It's a great question. I mean, for us, the highest volume thing that we have, which is usually where people look at AI, is what do I have that's high volume? And the highest volume thing that we have in an insurance company is claims. So we started to say, if you were to file a claim, the first thing I need to do is see, do you have coverage for this thing that you're filing a claim for? And are you paid up to date and all of those things? And so we can have an AI that can kind of do those pre-checks to say, oh yeah, we found this person, they're on this account and they do have coverage, it's active, and yes, we do cover that thing. So we would use AI to help the humans make a decision. Now, we don't let AI make any final decision unless it's a pay. If it's something that doesn't look like we're going to be able to pay it, maybe because it's not covered, or maybe you didn't have coverage at the time of the accident, whatever it may be, a human has to go in and make that decision. We do not let the AI make any decisions to deny. It's only able to pay. But it does speed up, including we do things like we pay for wellness checks. So if you go get a wellness check just as part of being healthy, you go see a doctor once a year, a lot of our products will pay you for that check. That's a perfect use case for AI because there's millions of these that we'll have every year. These wellness claims come through, and it's a relatively straightforward claim. Do you have a policy? Did you go to a doctor? And have you already claimed it this year? And if you haven't, it's an easy pay. So that's where we bring in things like AI, again, so that we can bring in our humans for when we have more complicated claims and decisions that we need to go through with the customer to help them understand.
So, one of the things I've personally been asked about is change management as it relates to, let's say, people working in customer service. Now, just like your son, like many of them are working with AI or with technology, and that is a learning curve. That's a change management challenge. Did you have any hurdles with change management inside the company developing employees to be comfortable with AI?
We did. I mean, the first thing that employees, in general would think when they hear AI is, what does this mean for my job? Am
Yeah.
I going to be out of a role? Am I getting replaced by the robot? Is that going to happen? And what we have done is we've pivoted employees, say, you're not getting replaced by the robot. Now you're going to oversee 10 robotic processes and say, hey, can you make sure that the robot's doing it right? If it's not, we need to recode it and refigure it. So now you actually have a new role where instead of doing that manual thing over and over, you're now supervising an automation that's doing it to make sure it's doing it right. You're the final check, you have the final decision, but you're able to basically do a lot more work in a lot less time because you've almost got like robotic assistance, as part of your job, which again has allowed us to say, well, we can spend more time then working on the hard things now that the easy things have much more automation to them.
Absolutely. So you're going to oversee, you call them like robotic process automation, basically,
That's
robotic
right.
processes.
That's right. Like we would have RPA in here and we have, more advanced AI beyond that. But that's really where it started with us was, in fact, people were just putting, algorithms into Excel and kind of, widgets and things there that would make their jobs easier. And then that kind of turned into RPA. And then now it's turned into, full-blown AI in certain areas. But what we want to make sure is that it's a walk and that the employee understands from a change management standpoint how they're going to use this new tool and how it's going to help them. Because the goal is not to replace people. The goal is to replace the tasks that people are doing to free them up to do those more important tasks, again, like those conversations.
And Keith, have the employees been surprised like the AI actually helps them do their jobs better?
Yeah, so we have quality scores that we have for all of our people, and those that are using the AI see much higher quality than those that aren't, just because of the amount of thing. The AI will say, hold on, did you check for this? What about that? Don't forget this. And so it helps them out. And so we do see that those that are using it have much better success. Again, all of our decisions still have a human in the loop in that final decision, but you've got something, it's almost like spell check. When I send an email, it's like, did you mean to spell it that way? It underlines it in red. I don't think you meant, and then even grammar check. I think you're missing an adjective here or a preposition, and so it's that kind of thing. Our employees are saying that their results are better when they use those tools.
So, Keith, you manage a really large team. I believe it's around 2,000 people. You clearly have this eye for technology. What's the secret to being a good customer experience leader who also has their head around technology? Is it hard to balance all of the requirements of the job?
So I think the biggest thing is, and I kind of went to curiosity and empathy is what I look for. Um, you're always looking at customer experience and what the customer experiences are of everywhere you go, everything you do, whatever you had for, dinner last night, whatever you're gonna have for breakfast this morning, anything that you interact with. I'm constantly looking, maybe judging, all the customer experiences and trying to see, hey, what could I take from this other industry? One thing that we did a few years ago was we ordered pizza from a place that had a pizza tracker on their mobile app, and we could see when it was going in the oven and when it was getting the cheese and getting the red sauce and being loaded in the car. And we said, let's have our claims app work the same way. That when you file a claim, it can go under, initial review, and now it's being processed and the payment's being distributed until you get paid. So we created a claims tracker which was a total ripoff from a pizza company, right? But it was the customer experience that if people want to see that kind of tracking, we should provide that tracking instead of you file a claim and in our case takes about 3 days to get paid. So you file a claim and then 3 days later you're paid. It was like, what if we let you in behind the scenes during those 3 days to let you know what was happening so you could see your claim being processed through the system. So I say that what helps me out is constantly looking outside of Aflac and outside of insurance to see what are other companies doing and what would be the insurance version of that thing.
Absolutely. I love that. So you were inspired by pizza delivery. You're thinking, how can we make Aflac better through this inspiration? I love that. Let's talk about the future. Insurance, there's a great time of change right now. There's just a lot of moving parts, and the whole industry, I feel like, is going through a transformation. What do you think the future of the industry is? Like, does it look different than it looks now?
Yeah, I think how people interact with their insurance companies changes over time, and we've seen that. Long time ago, insurance was sold door to door, and someone would knock on your door of your house and tell you about insurance options. And then, in the 60s and 70s, we started selling through the workplace, right? And then in the 90s and 2000s, we started selling online and through the workplace and self-serve. So I think it's a continued evolution. As we go from paperless to digital and agent assisted and agent enrolled, to what role the agent plays and how they can help you make those decisions. I mean, as you said earlier in the call, like insurance is not something that people wake up in the morning saying, you know what, I want to buy a bunch of insurance today. It's something that's necessary and needed that people don't always think about unless you're required to, like your homeowners because you have a mortgage or your car insurance because your state requires it. But when it comes to supplemental health insurance like we have, you really need that person to say, hey, listen, there's a need for this product, and let me tell you how it can help you. But how that person is doing that is changing over time. And we saw it during the pandemic. Our agents used to go into workplaces and brokers would go into workplaces and meet with all the employees. But when there were no employees at the workplace and they were all home, we quickly had to get a bunch of iPads for folks and things to be able to do, a different technology experience. So I think as technology, I mean, insurance is one of the oldest industries in the world and it continues to evolve. Aflac is a 7-year-old company. We continue to evolve. And the trick is being agile enough to stay with that evolution and not fall behind where you wake up one day and you're, completely out of business because you haven't kept up with what customers want and where technology could take you.
Just because you mentioned sending employees home with iPads during COVID, have you brought most employees back to the office, or how are you handling the hybrid approach?
So we are pretty hybrid. I would say that we've probably got about 25% of our employees are in office 5 days a week. That's where I am is here. I work best here. I love collaborating with people in the hallway. I can do it over Zoom or Teams as well, but I find that the hallway or in the cafeteria is where some of the great ideas come from. So probably about 25% of us are in the office full time. Probably about 50% of us are in 3 days a week, and then that last 25% would be fully remote, including people that we hired during the pandemic that might live, outside of our local area and don't have an office to go to.
So it seems like you guys have stayed pretty steady on your hybrid approach. You didn't change the situation. You
That's
let
right.
them still work remote. But as you admit, like in-person collaboration, really nothing can beat it.
In my opinion, and maybe it's a little bit to do with kind of how I learned to work and all of that, but I do think that there's something about constructive collisions in the hallways that oh man, I've been meaning to get with you. I had this question, and honestly, if I hadn't seen you, it might have been a month before I ever thought to email you about this. But I was earlier, well, yesterday, I was riding the elevator up with our chief legal counsel, and I had like 3 questions I've been wanting to ask him about something. And honestly, I would have emailed him in a few weeks when it kind of became a burning issue for me. But in the meantime, it was just so easy, and he stepped off the elevator, and we had a conversation. And so, yeah, I think there's always a place for that. But we know also when we have this hybrid environment, it does allow us to attract different talent that maybe wouldn't be able to come in or wouldn't live close enough to a campus. So I think being hybrid is the best of both worlds. You've got some people that are here all the time. You've got other people that you can attract from maybe further afield.
Love it. Well, I've been able to ask you all of my core questions, so I want to get to the fun questions. Does that sound good?
Sounds
Rapid
great.
fire. Okay. All right, Keith. First rapid fire question. Need a quick answer to my quick question. What's the most important part of your morning routine?
I would say the most important part of my morning routine is probably my drive in. I say that because I have a 45-minute drive in. I listen to different podcasts that inspire me, and whatever I hear in the podcast can kind of set the tone for my day.
I love that. Okay. What show are you currently streaming?
Dairy Girls on Netflix. So I lived 4 years in Northern Ireland, just moved back here 2 years ago. This is a show about Northern Ireland that's a really
Yeah.
funny show. I watched it before living there, then we lived there, and now I'm watching it now that we're back home because it's even funnier. I get more of the inside jokes that I didn't get before.
You miss Ireland?
I do. It's a great place. We were in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and it's wonderful.
What's your idea of perfect happiness?
Perfect happiness would be driving a classic car with my whole family in it to have some food at some great place. I love old cars. I love spending time with family. And if I can bring those two things together, that'd be a great day.
What is one mental health strategy for managing hard days?
I think sometimes our whole lives and our whole careers are a little bit of a book or a movie. And so when you have a bad day, that's just an interesting chapter or that's an interesting page in the book. And I think that if you look at things, if you can kind of take yourself out of the moment and say, wow, I will look back one day at a 50-year career and say I had good days and bad days. Today was one of the bad ones, but I'm learning from it. And so when I get stressed out about something, I'm like, hey, just remember this is a book or a movie that you're putting together in your mind. And today was just a page. Today was just a chapter. There'll be more ahead.
That's so great. That's really interesting. And if you could have lunch with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
It would be my father. My father passed away at 55 years old, almost 20 years ago now. And I was a young adult when I knew him. I would love to know him as an older adult and have a bunch more questions I would ask as a grown person in the workplace that I would have as a young 20-year-old when he passed. So that's who it would be.
And lastly, if you had to describe your life outlook in one quick motto, what would it be?
One quick motto would be something on optimism. So I would think that tomorrow is going to be better than today, even if today was great.
Great. Fantastic. You did such a great job. You should be a professional interviewee. You're always welcome back on my show. Thank you for being here, Keith.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Everybody, you've been tuned again to the Modern Customer Podcast. Thanks for watching and listening. Till next time. Please don't forget to like or subscribe and follow my social content on other platforms where I post content daily, including X, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and more.